Hey everyone, welcome to a quickie edition of the Wandering Yuki Cheese Cafe, and I've just finished flipping my coffee table over. Not out of anger, just because of a simple repair. So, if you remember that video, and in case you don't remember, I'm just going to put a link in the top right corner right here. As long as you're watching on the YouTube channel. If you're watching on Facebook, sorry, it's not appearing. You're going to have to click on my channel. So my coffee table, just to give you a recap, was made of wood, sheet of plywood, put some bottle caps on, laid down a layer of epoxy, and it was a really nice thing. The one downside though, I noticed after the winter, I got this nice big crack right over here. So what this tells me is that it wasn't just the weight of the epoxy here, but it was also the weight of the snow when it was sitting out through the winter that kind of made it cave in on itself. So what I'm about to do is I'm about to fix this thing up. Because I realized that one thing I didn't do was give some kind of structure right in the middle of this thing. So we're going to get to work. First thing I did is I took some leftover 2x3s that were sitting around my house. I don't know, these old people who lived here were DIYers themselves. Very questionable, I'd say, too. Might cover that in another episode. So I got this cut to fit into size, and I'm going to try to get these in. There. That should do it. Because when it comes to things for structure, you want to make sure it's kind of flush and even with all of this. You don't want to have this kind of laying as a gap. So once you have it here, I would recommend maybe putting it around 16 inches apart, give or take, kind of like when you're framing a wall on center. Once that's in, I'm just going to take my drill, put a Robinson head in. There, that's in. And then I got a batch of 2-inch decking screws. Kind of like construction screws or flooring screws, but the difference is, this is designed for outdoor stuff. So you can do decks, you can do fences, and etc. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a few of these laid into the board underneath. Whoop. I'm trying to do this all in one take, so I'm hoping nothing screws up. So one over here. Oh boy. Oh, for God's sake. I've never had to struggle with a screw this much before. Oh, here we go. There, it's in. And in case you're asking, is this going to puncture the upside of the table? Don't worry about it, because this thing is 2 inches long. The piece of wood I'm putting is 1.5 inches thick, and that plywood is 3/4 inches thick. So if it does pierce all the way through and I have a screw sticking up, that's probably a sign of bigger issues than just a screw. Okay. I got one in. Now I'm going to do this again in the center. So hopefully my theory is that this, as I screw them in, is going to cause this gap to close up on its own. And I got this one laid in center, and then one more on the side. One, two, let's get this one in. Okay, well, that didn't seem to close up the gap itself, but you know what? At least I got some support. Some support. Because the other trick, too, is another trick you can use when you're framing, let's say, a wall, or if you're framing, like, structural elements in the floor. Let's see if I can get a good view of this. As much as I want to look like a badass, I may need to change angles. There. Angles have been changed. Now let's see if I can get a good view of this. I can probably see this well enough. So here's another trick for giving some added structure to this. Start screwing it in like this. And then once you get in the wood a little bit, start pivoting it this direction. There. So this way it's going to eat into the meat of this piece of wood over here. That way it's going to give it a little bit of extra support. And because this is a 2x3 I'm using, I'm going to need to use 2 screws. Because it's 3, okay, so that's going to be like 2.5 inches or so, or 2 3/4, because dimensional lumber is not what it used to be. But essentially, for every 2 inches of wood you got, you have to put 1 screw. So this will probably require 2 screws, like a 2x4, if you're working with a 2x6, you will need to have 3 screws. So repeat the same step. Alright. It's probably not going to be closing up this gap here, but at least what this is going to do is it's going to prevent any further damage. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side. There. It's a bit more solid now. So this thing is not going to break apart any further. Now I'm going to do the same thing for this other piece of wood and another screw because I kind of messed up. I should have brought 4 screws, not 3. Well, for watching this, stay tuned for any other editions of the Water Yuki Cheese Cafe that will be coming up. And until then, hit that subscribe button. Ciao, everyone.